The most dangerous predator in Texas isn't what you'd expect. He's 97 years old, smokes a cigar with his morning coffee, and hasn't fired a shot in anger since the day he walked away from a classified Marine Corps program that officially never existed. But when Las Sombras, Mexico's most ruthless cartel, decided to seize his West Texas ranch, they were about to learn why Samuel Tate's military records remained sealed after 7 decades. They would discover why his call sign, Phantom, once made battle-hardened soldiers whisper in fear, and how a man who needs a cane to walk can still hit a target at 1,200 yards without his glasses. What happened next would become legend. A story of how 40 heavily armed men were systematically dismantled by someone their intelligence claimed was just a harmless old rancher living alone with his memories and his horses. The cartel made the fatal mistake of threatening the wrong man. Using nothing but a lifetime of preparation, the instincts of an old warrior, and the strategic brilliance that once made him the Marine Corps' most lethal sniper, Samuel Tate was about to show them why some legends never die. Cold morning air carried the scent of mesquite as Samuel walked his property line, a slow but deliberate ritual performed before dawn. The cane tapped against the dry ground, his German shepherd, Duke, trotting beside him, ears forward, alert. At the north fence, he crouched with an ease that defied his years, running his fingers through deep tire tracks in the dirt. Too heavy for a ranch truck. Wrong tread for farm equipment. Duke gave a low growl, eyes locked on the road as the sound of an approaching engine echoed in the distance. Samuel already knew the vehicle before it came into view, an old Dodge belonging to his closest neighbor. Frank Yates pulled up, dust clouding around the tires, his face lined with worry. "Sam, you hear about the Nolans?" Samuel straightened slowly, brushing the dirt from his worn jeans. "What about them?" "They're gone. Packed up and left last night. No warning, nothing. But this morning," Frank tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "This morning I saw men at their place, big black SUVs, not from around here." Samuel said the word neither of them wanted to say. "Cartel," Frank nodded. "That's what folks in town are saying. They've been buying up land all along the border. Those who don't sell." He left the rest unsaid. Samuel patted the truck door. "They approached you yet?" "No. But the Carter's place went last week. Same story. Mystery buyers, cash offers. Then suddenly, someone else owns the deed. The ones who don't take the money." Frank looked toward the horizon. "People are disappearing, Sam." Samuel glanced back at his ranch. 3 county lines met on his property, a logistical nightmare for law enforcement. The perfect smuggling corridor. No wonder they wanted it. "You heading to town?" Frank nodded. "Gotta warn the others." Samuel turned toward the barn, whistling for Duke. "Stay safe." Inside, beneath stacks of hay and rusted farm tools, lay the cellar he'd built decades ago, back when people called him paranoid. He called it preparation. The false floor lifted on silent hinges, revealing military-grade communications gear, weapons, and enough tactical equipment to fight a small war. His phone buzzed. A single message from an old contact at Border Patrol. "Cartel moving fast. 7 properties taken this month. Watch your back." At the town cafe, Samuel sipped coffee while Olivia Chang wiped the counter. "2 men were in here yesterday," she said quietly. "Suits, wrong shoes for ranch country. Asking if you lived alone." Samuel didn't look up. "What'd you tell them?" "That you're just an old man who makes the best pecan pie in 3 counties. She smirked. "Didn't mention last year when you shot that rattler's head off at 50 yards without even looking." Outside, 3 black SUVs rolled past. Slow. Too slow, marking the next target. "You should sell, Sam," Olivia murmured. "These people don't take no for an answer." Samuel placed a crisp bill on the counter. Some questions need firm answers. Back at the ranch, he made calls. Not to the sheriff. This problem required a different response. "Stryker, it's Phantom. Time to cash in that favor." A low chuckle came through the encrypted line. "Been a long time, old man. How bad?" "Cartel's moving in. Need backup." A pause. Then, "I'll bring the others." At sunset, Samuel walked his land. No longer a rancher, but a battlefield commander. Every ridgeline, every approach, he'd planned for this. Duke's sudden growl snapped his focus. The SUVs had returned, stopping at his front gate. 5 men stepped out, their suits crisp, but their stance betrayed military training. The leader approached, smile practiced. "Mr. Tate, beautiful property." Samuel leaned against the fence, every movement calculated. What do you want? We represent an investment group. We're acquiring land. Yours has certain features that interest us. I'm not selling, the smile tightened. 3 million. Cash. Samuel scratched behind Duke's ears, watching the two men by the barn taking note of sightlines. Not real estate investors. Advance team. Money's not everything. The man's tone cooled. Progress is coming, Mr. Tate. You can be part of it, or... Samuel's voice remained calm. That a threat? The man hesitated. Just stating facts. One of the men near the barn muttered in Spanish about security cameras. Samuel let them find the obvious ones, hiding the real surveillance deeper. The man handed him a card. You have 24 hours. He glanced at Duke. Nice dog. Be a shame if something happened to him. Duke growled. Samuel's fingers remained steady on his head. That would be a mistake. Something flickered in the man's eyes. Uncertainty. He hadn't expected resistance. As they left, Samuel activated his real defenses. Cameras hidden in fence posts, sensors buried along the roads. In his cellar, he studied maps, planning Phase 1. The next day, Frank arrived with news. They're bringing in a specialist, a killer named Gabriel Reyes. Samuel smiled, watching another SUV pass slower this time. Good. I was getting bored. That night, under the cover of darkness, Cartel scouts approached the ranch. They moved with precision, gliding like shadows across the arid terrain. But they weren't hunting. They were being hunted. The first man went down with a silent dart, his body crumpling without a sound. The second tripped a hidden wire, a flash of movement, the last thing he saw before he was yanked into the air, his mouth forced shut by a cloth soaked in something that sent him into a deep, dreamless sleep. Over the radio, Reyes barked orders, but the responses were static. The more he demanded answers, the more silence mocked him. A voice crackled through their channel, deep, steady, unshaken. You think you're hunting an old man? Samuel's voice whispered through their earpieces like a ghost on the wind. Welcome to my home. By dawn, half their team was missing. Those who remained were shaken, jumpy, weapons clutched tight. They gathered at the edge of the property, eyes darting toward the unassuming ranch house. In town, cartel members whispered about the ghost of the desert. Some claimed Samuel was a myth. Others swore he was the devil himself. One thing was certain. He had sent his first message. The next one would be written in blood, because Samuel knew they wouldn't learn. They never did. And that would be their final mistake. The next evening, Reyes returned, alone this time. He moved cautiously, his boots crunching on the dry earth. A gun rested on his hip, but his fingers never touched it. He knew better. Samuel waited on the porch, a glass of whiskey in hand, Duke at his feet. The old dog lifted his head but remained still. The desert breeze carried the scent of dust and sage. It was as though the land itself was holding its breath. You lost a lot of men last night, Samuel remarked, his voice calm. Reyes exhaled, his expression unreadable. They were expendable. Samuel leaned forward, his piercing gaze locking onto Reyes. So are you. A long silence stretched between them. The night hummed with tension, the weight of unfinished business hanging between them like an executioner's blade. Then Reyes did something unexpected. He grinned, shaking his head in what might have been admiration or resignation. You know, he said, his tone lighter than the moment warranted, they sent me here to kill you. Samuel didn't blink. And, Reyes' grin faded, he glanced toward the vast expanse of land behind the ranch, as if sensing the ghosts of those who had come before him. Men who had made the same mistake. Men who had never left. And I think I'll pass, Reyes finally muttered. He turned, walking back to his vehicle, his steps slow, deliberate. The SUVs left that night, kicking up dust in their wake, never to return. The cartel had pushed, and Samuel had pushed back harder. Now they knew the truth. Some things weren't worth the fight. By morning, Samuel sat at the town cafe again, sipping coffee. The air smelled of fresh bread and roasted beans. Olivia wiped the counter, watching him with knowing eyes. She had seen this play out before. Different men, same ending. Done already? She asked, arching a brow. Samuel smirked, stirring his coffee lazily. They finally learned their lesson. She chuckled, shaking her head. Took them long enough. Samuel only nodded. Outside, the desert stretched quiet and vast, as it always had. The sun crept over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of fire and gold. The land was still his, and it always would be. A crow cawed in the distance, its cry echoing over the empty terrain. The ghost of the desert remained,